And then one day, let me go back. See? Here are the cooling towers. Not your beautiful, your regular old, there's a name for them, industrial cooling tower. So one day in the summer, it was a nice summer day, this happened. We call it the cooling tower collapse. Now, of course, the cooling tower had been inspected, rigorously inspected, just recently before this happened. The cooling tower, this picture, was given to us by an anonymous employee. Whoever he or she is, you know, is still a mystery, but we all say thank you. Now, they first reported that there had been a small malfunction at the plant. And then like a day later, it was still a small malfunction. And then this picture ended up on the front page of every paper, and this picture ended up on every TV screen. And Entergy went, but safety, of course, you know, the public safety has never been in any way compromised through this. So I'm at a hearing about 2 months after this, and it's actually one of these hearings where there's a state panel on nuclear advisory panel, and they brought a whole bunch of engineers in from the company, and they let the public actually come up and make statements. So when I got up there, I just started looking at the engineers. And I said, look, I have a real burning question for you, okay? You know, I understand that this is just cooling water. And, yeah, and of course, the public's health and safety was never compromised here. Yeah, I was being a little silly. But my question to you, gentlemen, is if this is happening on the non-radioactive side of this plant, what's happening inside that containment building? What's happening with that reactor? Are you cutting corners? Are you not properly maintaining the plant? Are you not investing in this plant the way you should be? Well, of course, we're doing everything that we can to make sure that the plant is safe and never have nothing to worry about, but that's the drumbeat that we started. If this is happening out there, what's happening on the radiological side of things? And the questions kept coming and coming and coming. And we count heads. That's what I do as a lobbyist and as an organizer. You count heads. Politicians start to migrate more into our columns. It started to get pretty lopsided, right? This one actually happened before that one. It's just a transformer fire. That's the containment building right there. It's just a transformer fire. These things happen all the time, and really, there's no reason for anybody to be concerned. And of course, public safety and health was never compromised. And of course, this picture was compliments of the same employee who sent us the first one. I love whistleblowers. I really do. So, Entergy is just, you know, starting to worm and squirm. Their people in the legislature are, their lobbyists are starting to, you know, get a little squirrely. A lot more of them started showing up in the legislature directly from Louisiana. Vermont's a very wide open place. It's very transparent because it's so small. People do business on a handshake there, but people have to trust you to really want to do business with you. So, Vermont actually had an agreement with Entergy that the state license, called the Certificate of Public Good, would expire 10 years after they bought the plant, or March 21st, 2012. And that in order for Entergy to continue operating for 20 years, you know, after they got their federal license, they would have to get a state license. And the law in the state of Vermont was, well, the legislature has to give the regulators, the Public Service Board, permission to go ahead with the hearings and the docket to allow for a certificate of public good, meaning that the people, through our elected representatives, were going to get to vote as to whether or not the plant operated beyond March 21st of 2012. And Entergy said, oh, that's okay, that's fine with us. They signed a document that said, yeah, sure. Well, after this stuff started happening, and they were counting the heads and they saw the migration, they started to get nervous. And they started to say, you know, we might sue you. Well, wait a minute, we have this agreement. No, we might sue you. You're going to sue the state of Vermont. Vermont is like, you know, the AG, the Attorney General's office in Vermont is like a mid-sized commercial law firm in Peoria. It's not like this gargantuan, you know, organ of government. It's a small operation. And Entergy is an $11 billion a year corporation. So as we approached the vote in the legislature, Entergy was in a hearing around that certificate of public good, and one of the parties questioned an Entergy witness and said, listen, we're trying to figure out just how much it might cost to decommission the plant. You know, we're trying to plan into the future. We just want to get a sense of it. So, to your knowledge, are there any underground pipes that carry radioactive material? And Entergy's response was, well, no, not to our knowledge.
To our knowledge.
Not to our knowledge. There aren't any pipes. No, there are no underground pipes carrying radioactive material. No, not to our knowledge. And the attorney said, are you sure? Yes, to my knowledge, there are none. Subsequently, the question was asked again in the proceeding by a different attorney. It was asked from the bench by one of the Public Service Board members. Are you sure? Are you sure that this vintage, you know, boiling water or GE Mark I boiling water reactor doesn't have any underground pipes to carry radioactive material? Yes, to the best of our knowledge. About a month after they answered the question that way, there was a leak in pipes that were buried underground carrying radioactive material. The stuff hit the fan. Entergy had lied repeatedly under oath before our Public Service Board. Entergy had lied to committees of the state legislature. So I'm counting heads. Our state Senate subsequently voted 26-4 to not allow our Public Service Board to go ahead and issue a certificate of public good. And because these slides are from a different presentation, kind of missed my cue. I'm getting This is one of the lead attorneys for Entergy Corporation. In proceeding, isn't that great? In proceedings before the Vermont Public Service Board. I think he was just kind of yawning, but we've used it, you know. But, well, you know, isn't that cool? So they said, you can't, you know, you can't give them a certificate of public good. And then they turned around and they sued us. And they said that the state of Vermont has been conspiring. The entire legislature and the Republican governor who supported the plant had conspired to regulate the safety of the plant. And of course, you know, that's a preempted activity. You can't do it. Only the feds can take care of our safety. So they sued us. That's when we started to do a little direct action. There's a little tire company. We're all in the Vernon Nuclear Evacuation Zone. Rally today in Brattleboro. Brattleboro's a little town near there. So on the day that Entergy began operating, with the protection of a federal judge while this thing was in court, we mobilized. On the day that they said, we're going to operate in spite of what you, the state of Vermont, says, even though we agreed. Even though we agreed when we bought the plant that you had a right to tell us we couldn't operate. Vermont's a small place. I've said that a couple times. We mobilized 1,500 people from 3 states. And these aren't in order. But we had us a big, big march. 1,500 people. It went about 1.5 miles. If you look, Kevin Camps might be in there on a cell phone. It was a beautiful day. This was March. Very beautiful day. 136 people got arrested that day. It was a very great day. Everybody was so much into it, right? And this is Edna Crow. This is Edna Crow. Edna's about 96, okay? And she gets arrested at Vermont Yankee routinely. By my count, somewhere over 24 times over the decades. And a reporter said to her, Edna, how many times have you been arrested at Vermont Yankee? And her answer was, not enough! She's an inspiration. Now, I do have to point out, okay, in Vermont, of late, we have what I call a catch and release program at Vermont Yankee. The prosecutor has said there's just too many of them. If we were to prosecute all of the people who get arrested at Vermont Yankee, we would not be able to conduct any other trials. Consequently, you check in and then you check out. And because they were suing the state of Vermont, the police will actually sit there as they're putting the cuffs on you and say, okay, we really support what you're doing. And the last time I got arrested, Kevin and my partner Jeanette, we were all 3 of us together and we were, walking around from one processing site to another, and I'll never forget it. A state trooper came up to me because it was March, but it was really hot for Vermont, which was a strange thing. We can talk about that later. But a state trooper kind of bent over and looked at me and said, would you like a cookie? And I said, yes, please. And then I got a juice box. Those are all my slides. So now, I want to talk a little bit. This is a newer part of this, but I've thought about quite a bit. Hey, I'm actually feeling all right. Everybody all right? Yeah. All right. I do what I do because I see injustice and things piss me off. And I've been trained by very good people and worked around a lot of good people for a lot of decades. And this whole merchant plant, this whole merchant nuclear power plant thing stinks to high heaven. It really does. Let me just give you my take on this. The utilities saw these liabilities and said, let's get them off the books. Entergy made a business decision, as did Exelon, but I'll leave that for Dave to talk about sometime. Entergy said, okay, here's our business plan. We're going to buy up some of the oldest, most problematic nuclear power plants in the country, and we're going to get them at rock bottom prices, and we're going to run them into the ground. We're going to set records on breaker-to-breaker runs of old, tired nuclear power plants. And we're going to make tons of money at it because it's carbon-free. And there's going to be a carbon market out there, and we're just going to sail into the sunset with boatloads of money. So, they bought Vermont Yankee. They bought Pilgrim outside of Boston. They bought the 2 Indian Point units north of Manhattan, 23 miles north of Manhattan. 50 million people live within, 23 million people live within 50 miles of Indian Point. They bought the Fitzpatrick nuclear power plant, which is just north of Syracuse, New York on Lake Ontario. And then a little later, you know, after they were really settling into their merchant energy groove, they picked up a gem out here in Michigan. Right? They said, oh, you know, we just don't have enough old, malfunctioning nuclear power plants. We need another one. And they bought Palisades. And I sat and watched these guys, and one thing I learned in all my time in the great Hoosier State as a consumer advocate, I said it earlier, you can point out all kinds of stuff about safety and this and that, but if you really want to nail these people, you've got to mess with their money, because that's what they care about. And in large part, that's why power plants close. If they can't make money at it, they'll pull the plug. That parade that I showed you of all those people, I had to make a speech before that to fire everybody up. And I talked about Vermont Yankee and how, hey, listen, these guys have to replace the condenser on this old jalopy. The condenser's going to cost $150 million. These guys have to upgrade in the wake of Fukushima. That could cost $100 million. That's $250 million right there. And then, of course, you have to take the nuclear cost overrun factor into account. Which, whatever number they say it's going to cost, you have to add like 50% to it to get the real number. So I stood there before that crowd and said, you know, these guys are looking at $300 or $400 million. So let's go have a good rally today. Let's all look out for one another. Let's stay solid. Let's behave ourselves, but let's do the right thing. You know what? The last thing I said to them, this was March 21st, 2012. I said, one day, you know, we're going to wake up and it's going to be in the news that Entergy has thrown the towel in. So, on August 27th of this year, I got up one morning, I'm having a cup of coffee. And I know for young people in the audience, some of us use televisions, boxes, we get information. We get information. It comes, like the weather and news comes through a large box that's usually in the living area. It doesn't fit on your lap. And I'm sitting there drinking this coffee and poof, you know, a picture of that pops up. Entergy announced today that the Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant will be shut down, you know, by the end of 2014. oh, wait a minute. And Jeanette and I jumped up, and we were jumping around the living room, and the dogs are going, what's going on? And she says, congratulations, there you go, right? And I went, oh my God. And then next thing I know, the phone's ringing, I'm getting emails, and a whole lot of what I got from people was, that's exactly what you said at the end of the rally. That's how you said it would happen. And I will say to you, right here, tonight, okay, that monstrosity here in town, that's been problem-plagued from the day they turned it on, is going to get shut down. Yeah. And we're going to do it, and we're going to do it, of course, with Entergy's help. Because they get so blinded by their greed and arrogance that they will say all sorts of things, like, Vermont Yankee is here to stay. You don't have to worry about it. Vermont Yankee is here to stay. And when Christy Todd Whitman comes to this town and says, oh, you know, Michigan is not like Vermont. Palisades is here to stay. That's what they get paid to say when they wake up in the morning. The wonderful thing about the work that we do and the people all over this country, in fact, all over the world that do this kind of social and economic justice work, is that we get up and we tell the truth. It's the best compensation there is. Nothing's better than having a job where you tell the truth. Because a lot of people have jobs where they have to lie to themselves and their families and their communities. Okay, merchant plants. It's not working. It's not working at all. It's a nightmare. I predict within 10 years, they're going to be seeking incredibly large federal bailouts to clean this mess up. And they knew that when they put this concept in place years ago of merchant nuclear power plants. So let's review a little while we're at it. This one's gone. I should just turn the slide off. In a year, we're going to have a big party in Vermont. You're all welcome to come on out. It will be a big party. The people at Pilgrim who are connected to you, they're in the merchant fleet. They were quiet for 5 years. They're not quiet anymore. They're very upset. And just this week, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has degraded Pilgrim's status in terms of how efficiently and safely it's being operated. And the people around Pilgrim are pissed off, and their numbers are growing every day. They are with you. They're part of you. We are the same group. At Indian Point in New York, there is active and effective opposition going on day and night. There are wonderful people down there doing great work. And then there are 2 people in particular that I really appreciate the great work that they're doing. One is the governor of the state of New York, Mr. Cuomo, and the Attorney General. And what the people on the Hudson River are saying is, you know, it's time for Indian Point to have cooling towers, because it doesn't have cooling towers. It takes it right in, out of the river and puts it back out. No cooling towers. The state of New York is seriously going to alter the discharge permit and require cooling towers. That's my prediction. Cooling towers will probably cost on the order of $750 million. $750 million is enough for Entergy to say, no, this is probably not going to make enough money for us, and so we've decided to pull the plug. That may happen. Okay, then we'll move up to Lake Ontario and to Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick is an old reactor. Fitzpatrick has the most fault-ridden condenser in the United States of America. And what's a condenser cost? Well, it's $150 million, and then you have to add on the nuclear statement cost multiplier, factor effect. So maybe there's $250 million at Fitzpatrick. So what does that mean? It means pull the plug. It means they can't make money at it. Now, you don't have to take it from me, because I'm a professional troublemaker. I'm not a physicist, I'm not an accountant. I'm an organizer. Don't take it from me. How about taking it from UBS? UBS, right? The Swiss banking firm that will sit there and will basically come up with great research and information for you to make your investment decisions on. UBS, back in the spring of 2013, said Well, from the way it looks, Entergy doesn't make money at Vermont Yankee, and Entergy doesn't make enough money at Fitzpatrick. We predict they might close those plants.
Oh, too bad.
So, we started saying, back at the Citizens Awareness Network, we started saying, well, maybe there's something else we can do here. Maybe there's a rule or a regulation that we could use here. And of course, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has regulations that require that owners and operators of nuclear power plants, whether they're a utility or a NUG, a non-utility generator or a merchant plant, they have to be able to show financial fitness and stability in order to maintain their license. Now, what we did was file what's called a 2.206 petition. Is that the right? I got it. And what we did in that petition, and we're joined by groups all over the place, as well as beyond nuclear, we're asking the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to go and basically audit Entergy and find out if Entergy has the financial wherewithal to properly operate its merchant fleet. Now, we went for the basket cases first. As much as I believe Palisades is every bit as much a basket case as, say, Fitzpatrick and Pilgrim are, there's still some work we have to do here with that pesky power contract that they have. That provides them a little more stability. But we'll work on it. That's a big, important factor for us to work on. So, the good news is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has accepted our inquiry. And they are, in fact, going to make a decision, they said, by the summertime. And at the same time, UBS is saying, yeah, these guys are really having trouble making money. And when you have trouble making money, and the banks and the brokers say, Entergy's having trouble making money, suddenly people start selling the stock. When you sell a company's stock, the company has less capital. When a company has less capital, maybe they might start cutting corners. Maybe they might start doing things, differently with their business plan. Maybe, just maybe, they're going to skip some scheduled maintenance, or they're not going to replace things that they're supposed to replace. This is where we have to go after Palisades. This is where we have to bring Palisades on board with your brethren plants and the Entergy merchant fleet. Because you know better than I do. Palisades has a lot of problems. Probably a lot more problems than some of the others. But, they had that power contract. And I have to honestly say to you, I have just begun researching the power contract. And I understand it's 15 years. And you're already in 6. Does that sound right? So that's a steep that's a steep curve we got to deal with. But we will deal with it. Well, I want to know, and maybe somebody in the audience knows, or somebody will go out and get the answers. Is there a trigger of any sort, or a crack that we can wiggle into in that power contract? Are there any requirements that say, for instance, if the wholesale price of power drops this far below what that locked-in price is with the contract, does the contract have, is there an opportunity to renegotiate it? Is there an opportunity for the regulators to look at it again? Those are questions that have to be answered. And so I would put it out to you that we have to reach out to people who have spent time before your utility regulators and get those answers for yourselves. Find out where the chink is that we can, chink in the armor is that we can exploit. How am I doing? All right. I got to tell you, last month, I got an invitation out of the blue to go to Germany and be part of a study tour sponsored by